Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast, coming at you after what was a rough week. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water and say, yes, this team's good. We're all good. It's all okay. Nothing bad is going to happen to me now. You get eaten by a shark, Jeremy. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah. Tell me about this shark eating incident. Because it sounds pretty intense to be eaten by a shark.
Is there a more unpleasant way to die?
Pooping yourself to death? Oh my God. Well, you asked. I mean, I'm telling you. I feel like that would be a more unpleasant way.
The fact that that's the thing that came to your mind is frightening to me.
Well, it's just a thought. I don't know. You asked.
It is a thought that you had. Thank you for having it and sharing it with our audience.
That's what
yeah, man. It felt like this. Well, a week ago, we were like calming ourselves down because things were good, and we were like, well, we shouldn't feel too good because they're never as good as they seem. And now it's amazing. Only in sports, Jeremy. Only in sports can you be at the top of the world one week and then at the bottom of it the next. Not quite as bad as getting eaten by a shark, but this was not a great week to be a Knicks fan because I think what had been largely a very stable, very solid, very like, okay, things may not be perfect, but you know what? It's okay because of this or that. Couple of months since things had been bad. All of a sudden they're now seemingly topsy-turvy, and there seems to be a lot more uncertainty in the air than at least I feel like there has been. And a lot of the long-standing issues and gripes and grievances and worries and fears have popped back up again. All because of, I think, a bad week. And it is a very bad week, which contains not one, not two, not three, but 4 losses. You joked last week, what if they went? What if they go 1-3? Well, they did not go 1-3. They went 0-4. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I haven't talked to you this week at all about any of this. I mean, where are you at mentally?
Mentally, I'm good.
Or emotionally?
Emotionally, I'm less good. Yeah. But listen, I think that if you started this week looking at this schedule, or last week rather, looking at this week's schedule, and you thought, all right, we could see the Knicks winning one game, and they couldn't walk away with that. And listen, they've had losing streaks in this season before. They have a lengthier one. It's obviously a different situation, especially considering how Mitchell Robinson's hurt. But while that is a massive blow to the Knicks' pursuit, that can't be everything. I mean, they should have won the first Toronto game. That was right. That was within their grasp, and they lost it. Okay. They lose to the Wizards at home. Okay. Great. Now Mitchell Robinson's down 0-2 week. They're in it for 3 quarters. 3 quarters, John, with the Hawks. And then they go belly up. And then once again, they're in it for 3 quarters. A little less comfortable game, but they came back, and then the wheels fell off in the 4th quarter once again. And I think each game on its own presents its own issues, of course, but then when you combine all 4 of them being consecutively and in the same week, it's just not acceptable. This team is better than that. They simply are. And I know that losing Robinson is going to be a major impact, but there's more work that can be done. I mean, there are teams that are ahead of them in the defensive ratings who simply shouldn't be ahead of them. And I know that a couple games can skew everything, right? Like, it just takes 145 points giving up to the Thunder, or everything might seem out of whack, but then buckling down, it's a different story. They have to find a way. And I know that they're tired. We'll get into that. I'm sure that has an impact. I'm sure they're exhausted. Listen, they're running on fumes, and there's some players who simply just have not been able to get the rest that they might need. And that's a problem. And it's coming out in the opposite end. And now we're seeing losses.
Well, let's get into it now, because it's a good place to start. So the week that was, we should kind of get into a little bit of the nitty gritty. You mentioned the Raptors game, which it seems like a million years ago featured I don't know. I guess it was the moment of the year. It was a pretty cool moment. RJ Barrett streaking down the court for a dunk that effectively sent the game into overtime. They did not pull it out from there. Jalen Brunson had a shot to win it at the buzzer in overtime. Didn't go in. Whatever. It was a loss that I think, for as disappointed as people were to watch it, it was not understandable, but it was like, it's a bad matchup. This team always plays us hard. They played desperate. The Raptors, I thought, played well. And the Knicks just didn't make enough plays to win. Okay. It happens, right? It's one loss. And in retrospect, giving up 123 points in an overtime game to the Raptors doesn't seem as bad when you look at what has happened in retrospect. Then you mentioned the Wizards game. And the Wizards game, I think, for me at least, was the first time all season where I felt like this team came out and they were flat from the opening jump. Was there another game that sticks out to you as being as bad in that very specific way?
Because the game in San Antonio is similar.
Which again, I kind of with an asterisk because they were missing Brunson and they were missing Barrett for that game.
Yes,
and they were coming off arguably the most deflating, devastating way to lose a game that a team could possibly fathom.
Sure. I'm just saying in terms of the kind of a hangover, in terms of overtime loss, game they should have won.
That's
difference.
Yes.
Differences for sure, but wire to wire win for Washington, which just similar to San Antonio. They just had their foot on the gas pedal the entire game. The Knicks lost that one too.
So then in back-to-back games, we have, because it's funny thinking about this week and you think about all the issues that have come up this season. So we had, after the Toronto game, the Knicks have problems at home. The Knicks have problems closing. Washington game. The Knicks are tired because they're so top heavy and they're running their starters into the ground. And they still can't win at home. This is a problem. And then Mitch goes down. And then we get into the Hawks game. And the Hawks are like, the Hawks game is a reminder of like, this like sturdy foundation that the Knicks have built defensively, maybe it's not nearly as sturdy as we thought. And how much is it dependent on one center who happens to be not injury prone? I never want to call anyone injury prone, but like, Robinson's, I don't know. What do you call someone? How do you say someone's injury prone without saying they're injury prone, Jeremy?
Prone to injury.
Because he keeps getting hurt every year.
It's not injury prone. He's prone to injury.
He's prone to injury. There you go.
Different.
Good. It's different. Clearly, big difference. Yes. But like, okay, so and then fourth quarter issues. Trying to bring that game home. Started off the fourth quarter not great, which was something that carried over into the last game, which was the bookend game with the Raptors. Another game. Very bad defensively. Another game could not close in the fourth quarter. And then to bring it full circle, we have the first instance in a while, I think, of people very, 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 very upset about the choices made for one player in particular by one coach in particular. And of course, I'm talking about Obi Toppin and the one and only Tom Thibodeau. So like, it's an 0-4 week. And like part of me wanted to come on here and be like, well, it's the Knicks and it could never just be about that they're playing poorly and it always has to be about something more. But the reality is it is about something more because there are issues with this team this season. And the struggle that I always have, not only as someone who always looks for an excuse to defend this coach, which I do, but as someone who tries to take an evidence-backed approach to the year and tries to formulate like grounded, reasoned takes, I still look up. They're still ninth in net rating. They're still doing, if you look at the totality of the sample size, they're still doing things well. I mean, it seems like they can't defend their way out of a paper bag, but they're still 13th in defense, and they're somehow 6th in offense, which again, if you would have told me that before the season, I would have called you many names, none of them nice. So like, I see that totality of the evidence, and I see that they are still, what are we, 2 games above 500? Yeah, 2 games above 500, which if you look around the league and you look at some of the other situations, and I don't have to go through them, just pull up the NBA standings and throw a dart. You're going to probably land on a team that is woefully underproducing this year based on preseason expectations. So like, I'm trying to consider all that, but then to stick your head in the sand over what has come out of this 0-4 week also seems wrong and disingenuous. So it's a weird place to be. And I don't really know where to go from here other than to agree with you, which is like, be better, coach better, play better, just be better. And that's kind of where I'm at.
I think one of the issues is that, yes, the Knicks are improving. They have a good record right now. It's important. We can talk about what's facing them shortly. But the way that I see it is it almost feels like, in terms of like an analogy, where it's like Tibbs is trying to squeeze as much juice out of this team as he can. But my worry is that he squeezes so much juice out of the team before later on that it like there's no juice left to squeeze. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like in the sense of they are playing well. They do have a great net rating. Their offense is fantastic. I'm concerned about if the wheels come off because of the fact that there's so much emphasis on regular season wins, on the minutes. Like we came into the season and the thinking was, the Knicks could be a passably good team. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean like respectable enough. Yeah. We're cool. We can see where the chips fall as they may, but no issues, no problems. It's fine. And the nice thing we can talk about is that there's depth. If that whole next man up, when one man goes down philosophy, that's great.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Quentin Grimes is hurt. Evan Fournier is starting. Well, Fournier is not the answer for the starting 2 spot. Never was placed in that position, but now he's out of the rotation. Okay, Cam Reddish, he's playing, and it's just there's no consistency there. And from all indication, based on Cam and the team, it just seems like there is a mutual agreement. If we can't find a consistent role for Cam, he's not going to play. And there is no consistent role for Cam, so he's just not going to play. Okay, no. Take him back. Derrick Rose looks fresh. He's not playing a lot of minutes. Okay, interesting. Cool. We'll keep that in mind. I know some thought, well, the Tibbs is just trying to keep him fresh for later on. I know I wasn't on that team. I thought, no, I think he's just an older player. He gets peeled back. Insert Deuce. Deuce has been struggling as of late. So he's getting minutes, but it's what? 5-10 minutes a game, maybe the
10
sweet
minutes
spot,
a game,
7 or 8. Yeah. So, okay, well, you've got Deuce in there, and then Quick is taking a huge step forward. Obi gets hurt. Hartenstein is not nearly as impactful as a center as some may have thought going into the season. Before you know it, you're looking at 4 or 5 players that are really in with Mitchell Robinson out. And I didn't even consider, with 4, it's with Manuel Quickley being out.
Yeah.
And it's just, they did, and they do. But it's just like, at a certain point, this team is running on fumes, partially because of the personnel, but also because it's, well, I don't really want this player to play. Okay, well, what about this guy? Well, no, he's not really the guy that won. Before you know it, you're looking at 5 or so, 6 or so players who are really good, but then you have to be concerned about what their staying power is as they keep logging these heavy minutes. And I know we'll talk about the trade that unfolded today. It unofficially started the trade market. It's the sort of thing where I'd love for the Knicks to make a deal. I think a lot of us would. I think the Knicks themselves would love to make a deal.
I think they would too.
They've made 2 early deals the last 2 seasons. They're one of the earliest ones. So I would imagine it behooves them to do that. They just need the market to also come to them. And that's the tricky part where the Knicks, it seems like both the front office and Tom Thibodeau are separately and together removing players from the equation that then exposes the players who are still in the equation to the point where they're just exhausted. They're getting worn down, and just have to hope that these next week, couple weeks just fly by or a trade gets made.
I think we're going to get to the trade stuff in a second. I want to do the personal injury report first. Last thing on that, because you summarized it perfectly. And like over the course of the season, us and a lot of other people have had separate individual conversations about like, well, can you really blame him for, ushering Fournier out? And can you really blame him for ushering Cam out? And can you really blame him for limiting Deuce's minutes when he's had these struggles shooting the ball? And, can you really blame him? Hartenstein, yeah, it's a different role, but like this, I think when you add it all up, it's the totality of it that is a more impactful negative on the coach, in that it is not 1, it is not 2, it is not 3. If you want to throw, I didn't even mention Derrick Rose. It's not 4, it's not 5. And then that thinking, right? When you have the starters and then you get, again, the one starter that's down in Mitchell Robinson. And then in 2 games later, or whatever it is, you have Obi Toppin having his best half of basketball that he's had in probably 2 months, right? And then to only see 3 minutes. Again, we could zoom in on we could look at that game. It's like, okay, well, the Knicks had it going into the third quarter, and Julius was in there, and they were part of the reason why they took the lead going into the fourth, and then Obi was in, and they stopped scoring. So, yeah, you could zoom in on that. That's fine. But like, again, the macro, it's tough to do that because it brings back a lot of these, like, well, I mean, man, it is clear that he likes his guys, and he has his guys, and he relies on his guys that he relies on. And the part about, that's one part of it, which has always been a big Thibodeau thing. And then the other part of it, which is he coaches the way he coaches. And he has a very set system of beliefs in terms of this is what wins basketball games. And Mitchell Robinson has been a huge part of that because of the things that Mitchell Robinson does. That we've been praising him all year. He's had a fantastic year. But is there a pivot? Is there a pivot to the point where when Mitchell Robinson goes out, you don't become the worst defense in the league, which is what they've been this week. They're the 30th ranked defense in the league. And if you go back and you look at their defensive rating when Hartenstein was starting those games, I don't think I ever actually sat down and did the painful exercise of ranking them for that specific period of time. But I'm pretty sure if I did it for that, when was it, back in November, I'm pretty sure they would have been pretty close to dead last then too. So it's like, yeah, I could sit here all I want. And ninth in net rating. Look at the talent. Look at the lack of a superstar, and try to sing this coach's praises, which, part of me definitely does want to do. But the complaints are very legitimate. They're very legitimate, regardless of the record, regardless of the data. It's all legit, and the reason why I think it's worth us at least having this conversation is because they're in this danger zone right now. And it'll be a good transition to talking about the injuries. And eventually we'll talk about the upcoming schedule, because, man, it's not getting any easier, Jeremy. I don't think.
It's definitely not.
Where's the soft spot coming up? Because I don't see it.
It's tough. Just before we move on to the next segment, I think the one thing to consider with Tibbs is, a main reason why Tibbs was brought into the fold was to make the Knicks feel reputable. You're ushering in a level of competence, and I think that's great, and it's really important. I'm not against that. I think that's a driving factor for what they're looking to do. When it comes to Tibbs, if he's not, like, if his whole point is to raise your team's floor, and I know I'm saying this on the heels of a 4-game losing streak, and as there's more of a daunting stretch coming up, so there's still time, but even still, like, if you can't raise your floor with Tibbs, who is a floor raiser, then what exactly is he offering you in the grand scheme of things? It's less about his principles, because I think that, again, a lot of the principles he holds dearly are sound. It's just, I look at this team and I look at the lack of passing as well, and it just amazes me how flustered they get when they get double teamed. But even still, like, there aren't a ton of great connectors there, but it's weird to me though, John, because they're good passers. There are really good passers on this team. I think the worst passer on this team.
I'll push back on that a little bit. I don't know if there's great passers on this team.
But you're right. We don't know, because of the fact that a lot of the times they're not showcased in a way that we're able to see it.
That's chicken or egg stuff.
But it's not, because the worst passer on the team, the worst passer on the team was Cam Reddish. It is Cam Reddish, and he was completely removed out of the situation. We know Brunson's a good passer. We know that Randall, he gets flustered, and that's a lot of times where it gets in his head and he struggles, and that's a problem. But he finds teammates and he makes these incredible cross-court passes. Sometimes his vision can honestly be too reckless, but he does a good job of it. Hartenstein was brought in because one of the things he can do, right? But he doesn't show it. Then that's my point.
You're right about that.
He's a good passer. He's not been able to really do that. He's not been able to be a connector, a facilitator, really anything. He often has to make his own luck. Grimes was a point guard in high school, early days of college, transition. Yes. the point I'm trying to make here is that there are players who know how to make good reads and that they can find other players if given the opportunity, but it feels as though the opportunities that they have are limited. And
finish up.
I just would like, it goes back to the whole situation of, while I understand why Tibbs is here, and while I understand long-term what they're going for and whether that involves Tibbs or not, it just feels like there's a reason why players come here. I've said it before. I'll keep saying it. There's a reason why players come here, and they just suddenly don't look like the players they were beforehand. And we could talk about the draft, and we could talk about the free agency and the players they acquire via trade. And I just feel as though the front office has the same goals, right? The same goals for the draft they're going to be in line with the free agent acquisitions. They're going to have a lot of the same core principles to them. So how one could look so good and the other could look so bad is mind-boggling to me. And it doesn't feel like it falls on the scouting of the players who we know are capable before they get in the door of New York. And then they're shipped out. And then it's like, well, okay. I mean, look at what Alec Burks is doing. Look at how good he is. He's one of the best half-court players in the NBA.
And look at and Alec Burks came here, and in his first year here, and for the first half of last year, I would argue that was the best year and a half long stretch of his career. And then he got put in a position in which he was not successful, which is the starting point guard, and that was a complete failure.
Right.
I'm going to push back on a couple things, though. One, I would encourage everybody to go look at the thread that Benji did after the Washington game, where they had 14 assists, in which he highlighted play after play after play after play, in which the pass was there and the pass was not made. Now, you could say, oh, well, you know, that's on the coach for reasons XYZ. You could say that that's on the players for reasons XYZ. That's between, you know, you and your God. The passes are there to be made. They don't always make the passes. And I would also push back. I don't think they have great decision makers on this team. I don't think they have quick decision makers on this team, or at least not enough of them. That's my personal opinion.
I'm not even going to disagree with that. It was more just the passing ability has been, and then that's fine.
As far as players coming here, I mean, again, I think Alec Burks came here and had a career year. I would actually argue that Nerlens Noel came here and had a career year. I know I obviously fell off a cliff after that, and I think there were some other issues that had nothing to do with anything other than Nerlens Noel. I think you could argue, you know, Derrick Rose came in here and it looked the best he's looked since he was under Tibbs, you know, in Chicago. And like, how do we have this conversation without talking about Julius Randle, who came here and made an all-star team and now is once again in the running for an all-star team? I mean, even Jalen Brunson. Like, again, we all love Jalen Brunson. We all think that, you know, Jalen Brunson, self-made man, the whole thing. He came here and he's in the all-star conversations. A lot of people didn't think he was going to be in that conversation. So for every talking point about players come here and they don't look like the best versions of themselves, there's another player that you could put forth as evidence against that point. So I think there's a mixed bag there. You know, I think what's very clear, and this is where a lot of people have valid gripes, is that Tibbs has a type. And if you're not a Tibbs type, he's not going to adjust to you. You better adjust to him. And if you can't adjust to him, well, you're fucked. You know, that's a problem.
But that's essentially what I'm trying to drive at.
That's a problem. It's a big problem. I would argue it's his biggest fault. The only other thing I just in terms of like the bigger picture, the competence, like you don't, again, this goes to the point that I made before about the inflexibility or the lack of being able to adjust, which honestly it really does. It's the same conversation with a players conversation that we just had. There is something to be said for if the old Bill Parcells line, about giving, if you're going to ask me to cook the meal, let me shop for the ingredients. If you give him the ingredients that he wants, I think he has shown you over the course of his career, and certainly in New York, that he's going to be able to give you a commensurate product that is as solid as anyone would be able to give you with the talent. The issue comes with, well, what happens if that product, if that group of ingredients gets tweaked even a little bit, with whether it's a Kemba Walker or whether it's we don't have Mitchell Robinson, like that's not a good sign. So it's the same conversation I feel like we've been having for 2.5 years. I could sit here and I could argue the ways that he's good. You could sit here and argue the ways that he's bad. Most people are going to agree with you, and I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm not saying that you're wrong. But like, it is interesting that 2.5 years into this, we're still having the same conversations,
But there are two different conversations to be had, right? There's the one that Tibbs doesn't know what he's doing. Like, that's not even where I'm going at. Tibbs can develop talent. Clearly, we saw what Julius Randle was able to accomplish. Where he's back, Jalen Brunson, as you're saying, I agree with you. It's that other part where it's so difficult to find players who fit exactly what Tibbs wants to the point where he's like, that's my archetype.
Yep.
Perfect. And now when you have someone who's just askew, as you're saying, it shifts everything out of whack. And it goes from looking like the Empire State Building to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. And God forbid it doesn't just crumble and fall, especially as they go through this next stretch.
You're right.
That's where it's so frustrating.
You're right.
Because last night, Obi Toppin is having a great game. First double-digit game he's had since early November.
Yep. He's
just looking in rhythm. He's taking nice outside shots. He's active, everything. Barely plays. Against a team that doesn't have a natural five, a traditional five. Barely plays. And again, not even partially, a lot of that is if the front office isn't going to move on from Tibbs, it makes no sense to have Obi Toppin here. Well, and that's where I will certainly say I wish that they would have intervened in some capacity at some point. With that said, still, it's infuriating as a fan to see the 8th overall pick's value be diminished further and further because, well, I don't know what that emotion was exactly, but it's the point where it's like if Obi can't get it going when he's doing well, and if he can't get it going because he's not playing well, so he doesn't see opportunities, there is no opportunity for him. Period.
I completely agree with everything you just said. The reason I made a face and I nodded my head when you brought up the fact that he's the 8th overall pick is I think the fact that he's the 8th overall pick doesn't matter anymore. Like, I don't think anybody out there should it.
Yeah, because of the fact. Look at the trade.
29 other teams don't care about the fact that he was the 8th overall pick.
29 other teams don't have to care about the fact he was the 8th overall pick. One team should care about it, and it should be this team. It should be this team that chose to invest a prized asset into a player that they wanted to nurture and grow. And they have just not done that.
Yes, I agree with that. And that was it. That is a massive L as of right now that they have to take, regardless of the reason you think that they should. If you think that they should take the L because they made a bad draft pick, if you think that they should take the L because they allowed this coach to continue to have his job and not prioritize a coach who would, be less stringent in terms of always having a traditional 5 on the floor, whatever. It's an L that the organization as a whole has to take. I'm just wondering at this point, like, what's done is done. The 8th pick in the draft was used on this player. The fact that he was the 8th pick 2.5 years ago, sitting here today, I'm not sure how much that should matter. Whether he was the 8th pick or he was the 25th pick, Obi Toppin could do what Obi Toppin could do.
I don't mean it on a game by game basis of oh, that's what the 8th pick should do, or wow, the 8th pick should have done better. It's not that. It's more just the larger impact of what a prized pick can do for your team and squandering it in a way that isn't supporting it, because that pick that is the reward for a bad season. The Knicks had the 6th worst record, and that's how they chose to invest their capital. And they should be seeing a better return on the investment of that season, and they're just not. And so, yes, I hear you in that these other teams are not going to care that he's an 8th overall pick. But it's not. It's about.
Can I clarify my point real quickly?
Sure.
If I invest $1 million in the stock market and my investment goes down to $200,000, I have $200,000 now. The million is gone. It's gone. I have $200,000. I need to make a judgment based on my life situation as to what I'm going to do based on the fact that I have $200,000 in the stock market now. The million it's over. It's done with. This is what I have left. That's more my point.
I hear that, and
I'm wearing by the way, an Obi Toppin shirt to show my support of this player.
And I'm not disagreeing with it. The point I'm trying to make here is you need to look at what decision process went into the fact that you invested $1 million into the stock. And it took a hit of 80%. That's what I'm trying to understand.
Julius Randle. 2 words. Julius Randle.
And that's great. But but that's my point. If Julius was capitalizing in a way that they felt he is going to be here long term, then Obi Toppin should have been moved earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, let's get into the injury report. This is good. I'm happy we did this out. I always feel like we arrive at a good place when we hash things out. Presented by our friends at Weiss Rosenbloom. Call Weiss Rosenbloom today at 212-366-6100 or visit them at weissandrosenbloom.com for more information. No case is too big or too small. Personal attention to your matter is their priority. Consultations are free, and of course, they do not get paid unless you do. One more time, 212-366-6100. Previous results do not guarantee future outcomes. If you think you might have a case, speak with a veteran attorney and not a rookie. Let me tell you, Emmanuel Quickley, he's not a rookie. He's not a second-year player. He's a third-year player, which is still relatively early in an NBA career. And my Lord, how he has become... Again, I'm not going to sit here and say he's the most important Knick. I'm not going to go that far, although the on-off numbers would certainly lend evidence to if someone did want to make that argument. But it is just amazing how much he covers up and how much he seems to hold everything together. And more even than that, how his introduction into a game that may not be going well can suddenly seem to turn things around for the better. And that was how it looked against the Hawks game, which was the last game he played before he missed this Raptors game. I think he was a plus something or other for the night in the Hawks game, on a game when everybody was big minus. So Emmanuel Quickley is listed currently as questionable for the Cavs game on Tuesday. If he misses this Cavs game, I'm officially going to get worried, just because I don't want this to turn into a thing. I'm really hoping it's a one-game blip, and that is, that's where I'm at with it with IQ. Anything to add?
Well, they don't have a lot of healthy bodies, so it'd be nice if one of the ones that Tom Thibodeau relies on could be healthy. That'd be great.
Yes,
yeah. Come back soon.
They are missing a third of their healthy bodies that Tibbs feels comfortable relying upon because, of course, Mr. Robinson. This happened since we last recorded. So this injury. So reevaluated in 3 weeks, which, as anybody listening should know from just watching the NBA and paying attention to this stuff, reevaluated in 3 weeks does not mean return in 3 weeks. Just as a point of comparison, Obi Toppin, it was initially said he would be reevaluated in 2 to 3 weeks, and he was out for a month. Given the fact that the All-Star break is when it is, and there are 4 games, I believe, between what would be the 3-week mark and then the All-Star break, which would give him an additional week, I'm not planning on seeing Mitchell Robinson before the All-Star break. Are you?
Not a doctor, but I guess not. I mean, what, 3 weeks? All right, let's see. 3 weeks would be around, I think he'd come back around the trade deadline. There's another week and a half of basketball, or a week or so. Yeah, I would agree that the first game after the All-Star break, that gives him a month or so. Yeah.
The surgery happened. Sorry, let me just make sure I get this correct. The injury happened on the 18th. The surgery happened on the 19th. So 3 weeks from the 19th is the 9th. That is trade deadline day. And then between trade deadline day and then there's 6 days more worth of games between that and the All-Star break. So
then there's only 2 weeks and a day between that trade deadline day and the Knicks' next game after the break.
After the All-Star break, yes.
So I mean, yeah, he could be out longer if they're reevaluating after 3 weeks. But
I think they're going to give him the 5 weeks, and I think we're going to see him after the All-Star break. That's my best guess. Let's hope. Who knows? Maybe it'll surprise us. You never know. Okay.
Can I add one more injury report?
Sure. Yeah.
I feel like we don't talk enough about the team that is also really important to the Knicks, which is the Dallas Mavericks, who lost Christian Wood same night, actually, due to a thumb injury. So
but it's simply not as severe an injury.
Not nearly as severe, but they've been losing games. Don't look now, but I think they're only 2 games back of the 11th seed in the West.
I'm pulling it up right now.
So, just again, they're in a tough spot because the Knicks own their pick. I don't see them doing a lot of big time moves because of how the pick impacts their entire team and their future. So something just to consider. I don't know if they're really going to do much to, yes, as Andrew points out, everyone's 2 games out of the 11th seed in the West, but the reason I'm saying that is the Mavs have been on a bit of a slide. I think they're 3-7 in their last 10.
They are 3-7 in their last 10. Yes.
And this is a team that is only now 2 games back of being the 11th seed. So they were riding really high, and now they're suddenly dropping a bit. And it'll be interesting as other teams maybe get better because they have the capital or are willing to get better this season to see where the Mavs wind up.
Same record as the Knicks, 25-23. They are as close. They are in 5th, but they are as close to 11th as they are to 4th, which is what Andrew was implying. That would be that'd be a nice thing to get if that pick could be a decent pick. I don't know if I'm counting on it yet. I don't know what to make of the West right now. But that's a good job by you bringing that up. Only other thing we want to do before we get to our other categories and finish up with all that stuff, talk a little trade. So, as you mentioned already, NBA trade season unofficially kicked off today with the move of Rui Hachimura, former, was he 9th or 10th? I forget.
9th.
He was that one pick ahead of Cam Reddish. That's right. In Cam Reddish's draft, was sent to the Lakers for not 1, not 2, but 3 second-round picks. One of which is certainly going to be a juicy pick. The Bulls' second-round pick. You figure it's going to, I don't know, could be in the 30s. We'll see. This upcoming draft, and then also I believe a distant Lakers pick that is a second rounder in like 2029, and then another pick where it's either one of, I believe, Washington's or the Lakers picks in another year. I gotta be honest with you, Jeremy. I just in a vacuum, I thought 3 second rounders for a guy who was like very clearly not in Washington's plans moving forward. I thought the Wizards did pretty good to get 3 seconds, including what's I think a pretty good second rounder. I don't know. I mean, there's an obvious effect on Cam Reddish. One, because if the Knicks were looking to move Cam Reddish for second rounders and Rui got 3, what does that say about what they could get for Cam? If that is indeed the direction they want to go for Cam. 2, the Lakers were seen as a Cam suitor. This takes them off the table. And I guess in conjunction with that, if the Lakers aren't going to be a Cam suitor, does the team that winds up acquiring Cam Reddish, is that going to be more of a deal where the Knicks are acquiring talent to help them now as opposed to future assets, which is what this trade was about? So take it away. I'm sure you have some thoughts on this.
Well, I'm with you in terms of, I thought the Wizards did okay, just all things considered. Supply and demand with this deadline is going to be fascinating because there are a lot of teams.
Wait for it.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many teams that have players available, especially wings and slightly larger guards, to the point where I think the Wizards were smart to get ahead of this as much as they could. Hachimura was clearly unhappy. He had a comment the other day. He just wants to be valued as a basketball player. And I thought they did fine. I thought for the Lakers, it's no skin off their back. Kendrick Nunn wasn't going to give them much. They were playing too small. They needed some size. Hachimura is a good defender. His offense, a little shaky. There's still some room for improvement there. But I was fine with it for both teams. Naturally, yes, I thought, how does this impact me and my favorite team?
Yeah.
And the way I saw it was, it probably does take Cam Reddish out of the equation because the Kendrick Nunn salary would have been the ideal one. I think if you're the Knicks, if you didn't want Nunn, probably a couple of reasons. Number one, you don't need his talents. You have other players who are capable. Number 2, if you wanted to flip him, there's now pressure on you to move him for probably someone with a salary next year, but not 2 years down the line. Because if you're still in line with how you want to navigate with the trade, that's a certain factor. Yeah, just from the Lakers standpoint, I think the really interesting angle that I haven't seen anyone talk about, there's all this talk of the Lakers trying to be a team with cap space.
Yeah.
And it's just not going to happen now because Hachimura's cap hold, even if it's reduced, he'll sign for less than his cap hold will be.
Jake Fisher brought this up in his Yahoo article.
Okay. Haven't read the article yet, but
he's the first person that I saw bring it up.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. That's going to be a factor. And it makes me wonder, how are they going to approach Beverly? How are they going to approach Westbrook? Because they kind of need to trade at least one of them for future salary because they're going to just have a very small amount of cap space to work with, which isn't really tenable. Do the Knicks come into play there? Probably not. I'm sure some are thinking, well, Evan Fournier could go there. And yeah, that's certainly an option, but I still think the best thing for them to do is probably to move Westbrook to a place like the Spurs, to a place like the Pacers for diversified talent, turning one into two or three. So that's just, I'm glad everything shook out. Finally, we have a breakthrough here. Just means that the Cam Reddish trade gets narrower and narrower in terms of the destination. But should we talk about the other trade or scuttlebutt, so to speak, that came about today?
Yeah, sure. And before so the other scuttlebutt, courtesy of Michael Scotto, friend of the pod from Hoops Hype, is that the Knicks and Bucks have talked Cam. Bucks have been a team that Ian Begley has been reporting as having interest in Cam Reddish, along with the Lakers, Heat, and am I missing one? Or is that the only those are the three teams that have been mentioned? I think those are the three teams that have been mentioned. Anyway, so Grayson Allen, $8.5 million this year and next year, fully guaranteed. So falls in line with the plan to have cap space in 2024. Grayson Allen also, you would think, is a guy who would come in and talk about Tom Thibodeau sorts of guys. Oh boy, doesn't get much more Thibodeauian than Ted Cruz himself. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say about this other than like with where our understanding of what Cam Reddish's market is right now, which is to say there is not much of one. If they could get a useful guy who is a salary for them next year and could come in and maybe contribute, but at the same time, like, you don't have to worry about needing to give Grayson Allen a certain amount of minutes. Like if he comes here and he plays 15, 20 minutes a night, like that's fine. I'm probably famous last words. I don't mind it as a, and it sounds like the Bucks are the ones who are perhaps being resistant to this.
Could be. They could also just be looking for the right deal, taking their time. One thing that's kind of relevant. 3 minutes ago, Jake Fisher tweeted. Interesting wrinkle here. Have learned a Phoenix, Milwaukee, Washington 3-team concept that would have sent Rui Hachimura to the Suns, Jake Crowder to the Bucks, and 3 seconds plus salary to Washington helps set the price for the Lakers' acquisition of Hachimura.
So I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremy, the implication is that the plus salary part of that would have been Grayson Allen.
Yeah, even when the Eric Gordon rumor to Milwaukee would have happened, like that also would have had, because Milwaukee allegedly offered 4 second-round picks for Eric Gordon.
And it would have been very dicey to amalgamate, not amalgamate, that's the wrong word, to cobble together that much salary to get to Gordon's number, because he has a high number. Right.
He's earning about $19 million. So if you're trying to think about, well, what salary would be going there, I'm guessing it would be number one, for sure, Grayson Allen. The second one that I think would be interesting would it be Joe Ingles? Because those two together. But here's the thing: who else would it have been?
Well, Steiny had something on this because he was originally on this a few weeks ago. That you could. I think it would actually have to be a 4-1, unless you got. I don't even know how you get creative enough to avoid that. I mean, they have the little salaries, but it's 4-1 in season trades are like.
Now you're involving San Antonio. Like it's just,
exactly. Yeah.
It's tough. But that's the thing. Ingles is the only one who's an expiring salary that would fit with what Houston probably wants. They don't want to take on long-term money. But regardless, the Grayson Allen factor is fascinating to me because a lot of people are probably going to be scratching their heads thinking, why would the Bucks, a contender, want to get rid of Grayson Allen? He clearly must not be good if they want to get rid of him. And the answer, as it often is money. It would be a tax-saving move for one thing. They could also move Serge Ibaka through this deal. The Knicks have matching salary and roster spot they could do with Svi Mykhailiuk. That could certainly help too. To me, the way I see it, look, I don't really want Grayson Allen because he's not my favorite person. I think you could do better in terms of a player as well. A lot of it comes down to the salary. And I think the Knicks are kind of, I don't want to say boxing themselves in, but it becomes tougher and tougher to find that type of matching salary that works, right? Because I actually would like Eric Gordon for the right price, but I would like Eric Gordon on this team. He is earning, as I said, around $19 million. So what does that mean? It means you have to find a way to match that salary. Well, Cam is about $6 million, but are you moving Fournier? Well, he's got the extra year of guaranteed money, so that's probably going to cost you. He hasn't been playing much, so I would imagine his value isn't great at the moment. I think we could probably all agree on that. So it's Derrick Rose. Well, then there's the report of Derrick Rose wanting to be moved to a team that will be doing right by him. That's what the Knicks want to do. They want to do right by Derrick Rose in this case. So
that's a buyout to me.
Right. So it's either he gets bought out and his contract is, for the team option, it's extinguished and he moves to whatever team he wants, or he gets traded on this salary to a team that he wants to be on. But then you have to find the right team with the right salary. It's a lot. Here comes Grayson Allen. You could just match with him and Cam Reddish one-on-one. It's a lot easier. And, this is someone who is a great catch and shoot player. Last season, I think of players who take at least 75 pull-up threes. Grayson Allen had the fourth best 3-point percentage of all of them.
Yeah, half of the game against us.
Exactly. And this isn't me trying to talk people into Grayson Allen, right? Again, he's not my preference.
Well,
but he fits with a lot of what the Knicks would be doing from a team dynamic, but also from a salary aspect, which is that if they want 2024 cap space, he gives you exactly that. If you had the opportunity to move him this off season, you don't have to worry about, hey, do we extend him? Is he going to be a free agent? He's already under contract. You can move him, no strings attached. So there's a lot more flexibility that comes with this contract. The issue is it's Grayson Allen, and a lot of people don't like Grayson Allen.
Can we just, for a second, I know he's arguably the most unlikable guy in the NBA, and I agree with that. I don't like him. You don't like him. Nobody likes him. Grayson Allen's a good basketball player. I understand he couldn't really stay on the floor for the Bucks against the Celtics in their series last year. Yes, he has a punchable face. Andrew Claudio, thank you for reminding me. Okay, great. So is he a guy that's going to you want on the floor in a conference finals? No. Is he a guy that could give the Knicks 15 to 20 minutes a night that would really, really help them right now? Absolutely. And
who drafted him?
What's that?
Who drafted him?
Guy who's drafting players for the New York Knickerbockers at the moment. Walt Perrin. So yeah, there's that connection. Who's he represented by? Oh yeah, that's right. Certain agency over in California. Yeah. So there's reasons to think that this could happen. I have a feeling where we're going to wind up, and I have a feeling you share this feeling, is the Knicks are going to get the best thing that they could get without giving up a protected first round pick. And it's going to be what salary ends up going out, which second or how many seconds is going to be much, and which specific player they get back is going to be less important to them than the best deal that they could make, which I think to some extent would be in line with how this front office has operated. The last thing I want to say, unless there's anything else you want to add before we move on, I did think it was interesting that, again, in the report that Jake Fisher just had, essentially Jake Crowder and Rui Hachimura, excuse me, would have been a straight up swap for the Suns. That's kind of how I took that, unless maybe the Suns were throwing in one of the seconds that would have gone to Washington. Whatever, we don't know that. If that's Jay Crowder's value right now, which again, Jay Crowder could be on a beach sipping Mai Tais right now for all we know. We don't know what Jay Crowder's doing or what kind of game shape he's in, if he's in any kind of game shape. We have no idea. If that's Jay Crowder's value, it is honestly, it's very similar to what I think a lot of people in the Cam hive think about Cam. It's like if you could get him for that cheap, I'm almost surprised he hasn't been moved and some team hasn't been like, you know what, let's go get Jay Crowder, because I mean, I hope I'm not egregiously offending the Cam hive by saying this, but the difference between Jay Crowder and Cam Reddish hasn't done diddly squat in a meaningful basketball game actually I shouldn't say that. He had one nice series for Atlanta. I don't want to cast aspersions. Jay Crowder's been in a lot of big games and has played well in a lot of big games, and he knows how to be a playoff player. He's a guy who you could stick on the floor, multi-positional defender. I don't know. I'm a little surprised, I guess, that his value is sunk so low. That's all.
Well, again, I think it's just supply and demand. Just based on the fact that, the Suns are holding out for a good offer. And mind you, I don't know what the Suns would have done in terms of the pick comp or whatever, but I think it's worth noting that the Suns haven't made a second round pick since James Jones has taken over, which is fascinating to me. They just don't care for them. But in the sense of, they're holding out. If you gave truth serum to Raphael Stone of the Houston Rockets and said, hey, that offer you got for 4 second round picks for Eric Gordon, knowing that Rui Hachimura went for 3 seconds, are you cool with that? Are you still holding out for a first? I think the difference is that all reports are indicating that the Knicks are comfortable slashing the price, right? They're getting more realistic for what they can get for Cam Reddish. Yeah. And I feel like a lot of these other teams are like, well, let's hold off. Maybe someone will surprise us. And there's just so many players on the market that it's going to dilute what they get back. And I think that the Knicks trying to lower the cost of Cam Reddish is them saying, yoo-hoo, we want to get out of this. We want to be done with this. We don't want to hang on to him. We want him to do whatever he can do, wherever he can be. We don't want to keep trying to wait for time to keep going and going. We want to get this player off of our hands and into your hands as soon as possible. That's why you can get him for the low, low price of 2 second round picks. Because if they feel like they can do a lot better than that, then they're not going to be able to trade him. And they still haven't been able to trade him. And there still might come a point where the price goes down even further. And again, they will move him because keeping him would be the antithesis of everything that they're trying to do from a salary standpoint of paying him. And he wouldn't resign for a multiple year contract. I wouldn't blame him. He clearly doesn't have a role in New York. But that's why it's just so fascinating to me what these next few weeks will be, because I think that they're teams who are really thinking that they will walk out of the deadline with, their gold just falling out of their hands. Like they can't hold on to that many coins. They're using their shirt to hold all these gold coins in, and they just, they'll get to a point where it's like that scene in Trading Places where there's like sell, because it's just panic.
And there's enough wild card teams still out there who nobody really knows what the Jazz are going to do. Nobody really knows what the Bulls are going to do. Like Caruso's name has been out there. Like, are the Bulls going to keep Caruso? The Bulls going to sell. Okay, so a lot to look forward to. We'll be on top of all of it. But first, let's give out our usual end of the week awards. Starting with Game Ball candidates. Didn't forget to read them, Andrew. Candidates for Game Ball. RJ Barrett, solid week. This is what Andrew wrote. He wrote solid first with a capital S, and then he wrote solid again with all caps. Needed to write that. Point of emphasis. Including the dunk versus Toronto, and now he's adding something else, which I'll read after someone needed to praise RJ. I think that was meant for me. Julius Randle, rebound machine. Jalen Brunson, since last recording, he was named Eastern Conference Player of the Week. Did not have the best week since that. The New York Giants, lots to be proud of if you're a Giant fan. And then I want to give it to this person, but I feel like Andrew's prodding me to go in a different direction. DJ Zulo. So anybody who doesn't know who DJ Zulo is the newest member of the KFS team. He is going to be doing some film work for us. Probably focused on previewing opponents that are set to play the Knicks and looking at them, film breakdowns, statistical breakdowns. He's put out a few already. Awesome, amazing stuff. Some funny moments in some of his clips as well. He's great. Really, really, really great eye for the sport. Great mind for the sport. So shout out to DJ Zulo, newest member of the KFS team. I think he gets all of our communal game ball. Can we do that? And we'll pick a player in addition to DJ. Okay, fine, Andrew. You baited me. I will give my game ball to RJ Barrett. I was very hard on RJ Barrett after the Toronto game, even though he had 30 points on 18 shots. He was good. He was good. I do want it noted for the record that he was my 2-star player of the weekend in today's newsletter. He did have the big moment against Toronto. His offense has really come around. His offense has come around in a significant way this season after a rough start. He's rebounded offensively after his most recent injury. Didn't take him that long to get back in the groove of things. I like where RJ's at offensively. I'm not worried about RJ's offense. His shot looks good. A lot of stuff he's doing looks good right now. There is something about this player that gets under my skin. His particular mistakes.
You just hate Canadians.
Yeah, that's clearly what it is.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just rooted in the fact that he has, I would argue now for the third consecutive season, regressed defensively. He was a really good defender in his second year. He was a pretty good defender last year, and he's been a bad defender this year. And I don't know what that's about. I would like it to get corrected. If that gets corrected, I will sit here and give all the game balls in the world to RJ Barrett.
Yeah. Okay. So we're agreeing first and foremost that DJ Zulo, who creates great content, number one, and now we're picking whoever's below.
Now we're picking whoever's below.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to go with the New York Giants. And the reason I'm going to go with the New York Giants is because I feel as though when the Knicks have undefeated weeks and we say nobody for detention, that's fair. So it's only right that when the Knicks go 0-4, nobody gets the game ball. So I'm going to go with the New York Giants. Phenomenal season. I was expecting, as a Giants fan, just a tank and a disgustingly bad, putrid season in that giant toilet they call MetLife. And Daniel Jones, I'm sorry. I pegged you as an investment banker. I thought that was what your future was going to be.
Oh, wow.
And maybe there is still time for that in your second career, but your first career is going really well. Game of his life against Minnesota. A lot to be proud of. I'm really happy as a Giants fan and eager to see where they go from here. So, it's Ace, DJ Zulo, and then it is the Giants, and that's it. But yeah, RJ had a nice week.
He did. Detention candidates, Tom Thibodeau, which Andrew writes, bruh. Isaiah Hardenstein, all caps, bruh. Canada, sick of this country and their basketball team, yes. And then, of course, Shannon Sharp. Jeremy, you're up first.
This is a tough one. I mean, yeah, the Shannon Sharp situation, very bizarre. I'm not even going to say anything about Raptors fans because they'll come at my neck. They seem like good people, and then I'm surprised at the reactions that they have online, but whatever. I digress. I would say I gotta go with. I'll go with Tibbs. I will go with Tibbs, just in line with the thinking from before. Look, I think the larger aspect here is it's all about adjustments. There's time for the Knicks to adjust. The problem is that the time that they have is going to come against really intense competition.
Yeah.
And as trade deadline rolls around, I think about Rui Hachimura, and I think about how he's saying he just wants to feel appreciated as a basketball player. And he got his wish. He's on a new team. He's got a new lease as a basketball player. I'm really happy for him. And I think about Obi Toppin, and I think about how the difference is that Obi Toppin plays in front of Julius Randle, who is really good.
Julius Randle.
Sorry, plays behind Julius Randle, who's a phenomenal player. I understand why he's playing behind Julius Randle. It's the other stuff. It's the part where he's not able to get action even when he is playing well, as I talked about earlier, where Obi's been nothing but a pro. I mean, all these guys who haven't gotten minutes, they have been pros, and I applaud them for it. But for someone like Obi, it angers me. It just does. It really bothers me. And again, this is on the front office to find a solution, whether it is changing the head coach, which is not going to happen this season, or it is on moving the player, which may also not even happen this season, which means we go into the offseason with Obi Toppin a year before he's eligible for an extension. Well, really, he would be eligible for extension in October. And no clue what his value is on the open market because he just doesn't really get the opportunity. And he can't seize the opportunity because even when he tries, it's not there. So Tibbs wears that. The front office obviously wears that too for enabling Tibbs for coaching. But I just based on an 0-4 week and everything going on, Tom Thibodeau, you have detention.
I wish I got angry about that. It would make my job a lot easier.
Why not?
Why doesn't it make me angry?
Yeah.
That has to do with my personal issues of why I support Tom Thibodeau. That is neither here nor there.
But I hear that. But can't you understand the method to his madness and still be frustrated that someone like Obi isn't getting the opportunity that he like? There's just no opportunity available to him, whether he plays well or doesn't. But specifically when he plays well.
I mean, No, I don't get frustrated by it. Just being honest.
That's fine. That's where we differ.
I know. That's where I differ from 95% of Knicks fans, which is great that I host the Knicks podcast. Listen, there are some things I'm just going to be on a different page about, and this is just, it's always going to be one of those things. I'm not giving detention to anyone on Andrew's list. I'm giving it to Fred VanVleet. Fred VanVleet has scored 28 or more points 10 times this season. 4 of those times has come against the Knicks out of 39 starts. And in games that he has scored at least 28 points, the Raptors are 5-5 overall. They are 3-1 against the Knicks. I don't know what the fuck Fred VanVleet's been doing all year against other teams. I don't know why he saves it for us, but it's just really frustrating, and I'm putting him in detention.
Just quickly about the Raptors, I'm at this point where I really want them to blow it up because it means that they're not going to be a good team. And yet part of me is like, well, if they just keep it together, they're just destined to be kind of like mid forever. Like the individual players they have, their front four are fantastic. Together, for whatever reason, it's not clicking. Why not just keep working with that? And then, because Windhorst talked about how fascinating it was that they turned all of their championship players basically just into Precious Achiuwa. Like they lost Kyle Lowry, he became Achiuwa. There's so many other players. What it was like Ibaka, I think.
Gasol, Kawhi, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I like the VanVleet option being the detention. That's a good one.
All right. Here we go. The streak continues. Predictions. After starting the year off 7-0, right? Jeremy, you started
No. I was 6-0, and then you
6-0?
won.
Okay.
You won 2 or 3, and then I won 1, and now here we are at 7-5.
Whatever. It's 7-5. We're in the thick of it now. Now it's a race. It's like a Knick game. it's now a game. But you're still up 7-5. I won last week by going with 2-2. You went 3-1. I wish you had won the week, but alas. Okay, who do they play this week? They play Cleveland coming up today as you are listening to this at home. Then they go on the road to face Boston on Thursday. I'm not reading that, Andrew. Then on TNT, and then Saturday is that game still on ABC? I guess it is still on ABC. That's at Brooklyn. That's a 5:30 start. Can
I just say that I don't envy you at all?
Really?
Yeah.
Because you think I'm picking between 0-3 and 1-2?
I do.
Yeah. I think I don't envy you because I'm going to go 1-2. I think they're getting one of these wins.
I would have gone 1-2.
I feel pretty good about that.
It's fair. I'll go 3.
You got to do it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, having said that, they'll probably go 2-1 because last week I joked about 1-3.
Yeah.
Would have won. But just tough schedule. And they're missing Mitchell Robinson.
Would you have gone 1-2?
I would have.
Okay. What game do you think is the likeliest game that they win? I don't know that I have an answer for this.
Yeah. Jared Allen's healthy, correct?
Jared Allen, I think, is healthy. Donovan Mitchell, I keep looking for updates. He's missed the last couple of games with a groin issue that they seem to be taking a cautious approach with.
So
I can actually help here.
What?
Yeah, because I already did the pregame pod for tomorrow. So Donovan Mitchell's injury is a groin injury, and they haven't had like 2 days off in a row in the last 25 days. So the fact that they got these last 2 days off, Sunday and Monday off, is why they took it easy with Mitchell. And according to Justin Rowan, who will be the pregame pod guest tomorrow, who does the Chase Down podcast for the Cleveland Cavaliers, he's expected to play. They're supposed to be as close to full health as possible tomorrow, which includes Jared Allen, Jeremy.
So with that said, I think it's actually famous last words, the Nets. Seeing as how they're without Kevin Durant. Claxton, though, has been phenomenal this year. Kyrie, his last 5 quarters has been crazy good.
Unbelievable.
It'll be fascinating to see which of these games they can win. But yeah, I would have put the Nets game as the one being the case.
I don't feel great about any one of these games. I think somehow they're going to get one. I don't know how. I think they're going to get one. But we shall see. And if they don't get one, boy, is this going to be a fun podcast to do a week from now. All right. Before we go, a quick announcement. Jeremy, do you want to take this one?
Sure. As you listen to this on Tuesday, tomorrow, being Wednesday, there will be an episode of Cream. Looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. Come prepared with your questions. Excited to answer them. And I believe we'll do 7 p.m. So yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tune in and we'll have some fun.
Giddy up. It's about to get fun. I think it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks. I think there's going to be a lot of trades. I don't think there's going to be any monumental trades, but I think there's going to be a lot of trades. And I think the Knicks are going to make at least one trade. And I wouldn't be shocked if they made multiple trades. I'd be surprised. Would not be shocked, I don't think. But we'll see what happens. Come with your questions for Jeremy. He's obviously the best. Thank you, Jeremy Cohen, as always.
Thank you,
for your
Jeremy.
insight and expertise.
Of course.
Andrew Claudio, who's not feeling well. Thank you for being on the ones and twos and for insulting me in in our shared Google Doc and in our chat throughout the episode. I appreciated that. And thank you, of course, out there for listening to another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We will be back with more fun and games very soon. Don't forget, check out the pregame pod with Andrew and the aforementioned Justin Rowan, focusing on the Cavs before the Cavs game. And then, post game and onwards we go. All right. Talk to you soon. Peace out.